What if I told you that the gnawing emptiness you feel, that constant, desperate chase for a shred of attention, could be transformed into an irresistible magnetic power, starting today? What if you could stop being the one who waits by the phone, begging for a reply, and instead become the one whose silence speaks volumes, whose absence is felt more profoundly than any words? This isn't about playing games or becoming cold and distant. This is about unlocking a forbidden secret of the human psyche, a power so profound it completely rewires how others perceive you, desire you, and respect you. In this video, I'm going to reveal the radical shift that happens in the mind and soul of another person the moment you choose dignified detachment over desperate pleading. We will dive deep into the powerful and often hidden psychology of our beloved Carl Jung, and I will give you the practical key to make this transformation your reality. But before we unlock this, I need to ask you for something crucial. I've seen that a massive number of souls who watch and heal with these videos are not yet subscribed. If you are ready to reclaim your power and never beg for crumbs of affection again, then ensure you don't miss the wisdom that is coming. Take 1 second to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give this video a like to help this message reach others who are in pain. And one more thing, comment below and tell me what city or country you're watching from. Let's see how far across the globe the life-changing teachings of Carl Jung can travel to help those who need it most. Are you ready to stop being an option and become the undeniable priority? Good. Let's begin. Begging for attention never seems like a mistake in the moment you're doing it. Your mind convinces you that it's necessary. If I don't text them, they'll forget me. If I don't insist, they won't realize my worth. If I don't make an effort, someone else will take my place. And so, almost, without realizing it, you enter a state of emotional pursuit that, although you may disguise it as affection or interest, is fundamentally nothing more than fear. The fear of losing, the fear of not being enough, the fear that without that person, your world will become empty. What no one tells you is that this act of begging for attention has a price that goes far beyond embarrassment or immediate rejection. What's really at stake is your psychic energy. Carl Jung called it the libido, understood not just as sexual desire, but as the vital force that directs your soul. Every time you chase, that force is diverted, depleted, and fragmented. What should be fueling your inner growth, your purpose, and your authenticity ends up turned into crumbs that you hand over to someone who often doesn't even know what to do with them. And here's the brutal part. The more you insist, the less attractive you become. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because you are unconsciously sending a devastating message. I don't trust in my own value. That message isn't spoken with words. It's transmitted in gestures, in silences, in the way you look at your phone waiting for a reply, in the anxiety with which you answer immediately, even if you've been ignored for hours. That invisible language is perceived by the other person, and instead of awakening desire, it awakens the opposite: pity, discomfort, rejection. I'll tell you something that perfectly illustrates this point. A few months ago, a man confessed to me through tears that he had been pursuing the same woman for 3 years. He said, "She is everything I've ever wanted. I show her my love every day. I write to her, I buy her little gifts. I make her feel that I'm always there, but she never chooses me. She always pulls away, and when she seems to come back, she soon leaves with someone else." What he didn't understand is that this woman didn't reject him because he lacked qualities, but because his energy of pursuit made him invisible on the only plane that truly matters, the unconscious. The human unconscious does not desire what it already has for sure. It doesn't cling to what is always available. The unconscious seeks mystery. It seeks value. It seeks that which activates the instinct of conquest. And when someone becomes a beggar of attention, all of that disappears. What remains is an unequal relationship, one begging, the other administering crumbs. The hidden price is that you not only lose the other person's attraction, but you lose yourself, because every time you beg, you disconnect from your inner dignity. And dignity is not a luxury. It is the most powerful magnet you have to attract respect and authentic love. When you give it away, even in small doses, you are mortgaging your emotional future. And here's the hardest blow. When you beg for attention, you reinforce a pattern in your own unconscious. You program yourself to accept less than you deserve. The mind begins to believe that this is the only way to connect, by begging, waiting, enduring. And then, even if you manage to get that person back, it won't be from a place of love. It will be from the habit of you lowering yourself to get a piece of what you desire. It's as if by insisting, you were signing a silent contract that says, I agree to always be the one who gives more and receives less. And you know the worst part? The other person feels it. They smell it. They realize that you don't need that person as much as you think. What you really need is to fill an inner void. And nobody wants to carry the weight of someone else's emptiness. Therefore, begging for attention not only makes you lose the other person, but it also ensures you will never truly have them. Think of it this way. What value would a diamond have if it were lying on every street corner shouting, "Look at me, pick me up, love me"? Precisely what makes it valuable is its rarity, its scarcity, the fact that not just anyone finds it. Love and attraction work the same way. If your attention is given away freely, it becomes a common stone. But if your attention has weight, if not just anyone can access it, it becomes a treasure. And here I want you to burn this idea into your mind. Begging for attention is not love. It is self-abandonment disguised as love. Because the moment you need the other to see you to feel complete, you are no longer the master of your soul. Your happiness depends on someone else, and that is the most painful prison that can exist. Now you might be asking, what happens when you choose the opposite, when you decide not to beg? What happens when instead of running after them, you choose to stop, breathe, and remember your own worth? That's where the door to true detachment opens. And that's what I want to show you next. Hey, how's it going? I'm going to take a short pause to ask you for something. Maybe you've been watching these videos for a while and still haven't subscribed. It's okay, really. But if this content adds value to you, if it accompanies you in your important moments, subscribing right now with that red YouTube button is the best way to tell me, I want more of this. And believe me, that makes all the difference. Thanks for being here. And now, let's get back to the powerful message that awaits you. Many people confuse detachment with coldness, as if it meant to stop feeling, to ignore, or even to despise the other person. But that is not true detachment, because indifference is born from resentment, from contained anger, from wanting to prove, you don't matter to me. Whereas true detachment is an act of inner dignity. It's not about turning off what you feel, but about remembering that your love does not need to be begged for to be real, and that your value does not depend on someone else recognizing it. Detachment, understood from Jung's depth psychology, is the ability to release a projection. What does this mean? It means that when you pursue attention, you are not actually seeing the person as they are, but the image that your unconscious has deposited onto them. Salvation, validation, the mirror of what you believe you don't have. Detachment, then, is not to stop loving. It is to stop projecting lack. It is to reclaim your power by taking back from that person the responsibility of completing what only you can give yourself. Let me tell you something that illustrates this. In a session, a woman named Mariana told me, "I'm tired. I feel like he only looks for me when he needs me and forgets me when he's fine. And the worst part is that every time I decide to pull away, a horrible anxiety invades me, and I go back to texting him. I don't want to lose him, but I don't want to keep begging either." What Mariana didn't understand is that every message she sent from a place of anxiety was not an act of love. It was an act of self-abandonment, because she was doing it against her own peace, against her dignity. When we started working together, I invited her to try something different. It's not about ignoring him or blocking him. It's about every time you feel the urge to write to him, ask yourself, where am I writing from? From my fullness, or from my emptiness, from my dignity, or from my fear? And then Mariana began to discover the most powerful truth, that true detachment is not cutting the bond, but changing the place from where you relate to that bond. And therein lies the power. Because when you choose detachment from a place of dignity, something happens in the other's unconscious. They notice it, they feel it, And although they may not understand it with words, they perceive that you are no longer there begging, but that your energy has a new weight. You are no longer the person who is always available. Now you are someone who chooses, and that simple difference changes the entire dynamic. What's interesting is that often when you decide on this path, the other person reacts with surprise or even anger, because they were used to you being predictable, to you rushing to fill the void with their silence, to you becoming more insistent with a gesture of distance. But when you no longer react that way, when you choose to maintain your calm, when you no longer beg, then the energy reverses. The one who previously administered crumbs suddenly starts to wonder, what happened? Why aren't they desperate anymore? Could they be forgetting me? And that's where what we call the vibrational shock occurs. Your dignity becomes a mirror that forces the other to look at themselves. This is not indifference, because indifference is cold. It is distant, and it often generates resentment. In contrast, detachment from dignity is warm and firm at the same time. It's like saying, yes, I love you, but not at any price. Yes, I care about you, but not more than I care about myself. Yes, I can share my life with you, but I will not give up my peace to sustain something that breaks me. That is mature love. That is the love that Carl Jung considered part of the individuation process. The ability to relate from who you are, not from what you lack. True detachment does not turn you into a stone without emotions. On the contrary, it connects you with the most luminous part of yourself, with the certainty that you do not need to beg to be loved. And that certainty, when projected outward, is perceived as magnetism. Because what is most attractive in a person is not their willingness to give everything without measure, but their ability to stand on their own 2 feet, even when the other person walks away. And here is the key you must take with you. Detachment is not about ceasing to feel. It is about choosing to feel without losing yourself. It is allowing yourself to love, but without your life depending on that love being reciprocated in the exact way you expect. It is remembering that dignity is non-negotiable, and that everything you give from that place will have infinite value. Now, what happens when you start living from this place? What happens is that, curiously, the other person begins to miss you because the unconscious recognizes that you are no longer trapped, that you are no longer easy prey, that your energy has become more valuable, and that although they may not confess it, generates in them a deep need to seek you out again. And that's exactly where I want to take you now, to understand how your calm, your apparent silence, and your decision not to pursue activate something in the other person that even they don't fully comprehend. Because your detachment is not indifference. It is your dignity vibrating so high that the other cannot help but feel the void your absence leaves. Most people live trapped in a vicious circle. They do say or show something with the hope of receiving an external signal that confirms their value. They seek approval in a glance, in a returned message, in a like, in a gesture of attention. And that mechanism, although it seems harmless, becomes an invisible chain that imprisons your energy and makes you dependent on what the other person gives. The worst part is that the other person's unconscious perceives it. It detects when your vibration is seeking validation, and at that moment, instead of magnetism, you transmit neediness. And here is the secret. When you stop seeking validation, your mere presence becomes a magnet. Because what truly attracts is not your effort to prove yourself, but the serenity with which you walk, knowing that you are already enough. It is that inner calm that communicates without words. I don't need you to approve of me to exist. I already chose myself first. That kind of energy not only inspires respect, but also awakens an unconscious fascination that the other person cannot explain. I'll tell you a story that illustrates this brutally. Andres, a 35-year-old man, confessed to me in a session, "I always fall for women who don't chase me, but who, when they are present, seem complete, secure, fulfilled. It drives me crazy not knowing what they're thinking, but I'm obsessed with that feeling that they don't need anything from me, and that if they decide to stay, it's because they really want to, not because they are dependent." And then he asked me, "Why does that happen to me?" The answer is simple. Because a presence that is not needy is perceived as abundance, and abundance always attracts. The same happens in reverse. When a woman told me she didn't understand why she felt so attracted to a man who never begged her, who was never pleading for her attention, I understood the same thing. What captivated her was that he wasn't there seeking validation. He was the one who validated himself first, and instead of seeming cold, he was irresistibly magnetic. Carl Jung said that the soul seeks completeness, and that when we project that search onto another person, we inevitably end up losing our balance. Therefore, when you manage to withdraw that projection and give to yourself what you expect from the other, something changes in the energy field. You are no longer a hunter, you are a center, and the center is what attracts the most, because everything that orbits around seeks a firm nucleus to hold onto. Here is something powerful I want you to understand. Your need for validation was not invented by the person in front of you. That need is an echo of your oldest wounds, the childhood in which you sought recognition, the adolescence in which you longed to be seen, the moments in your life when you learned that you had to do something extra to deserve love. But when you remain anchored in that pattern, every relationship you experience becomes a theater where you repeat the same role. Look at me, tell me I'm worthy, show me I'm enough. And as long as you keep acting out that script, you will never feel real magnetism, only anxiety disguised as love. The change occurs when you stop and say, no, more. When you decide that your value does not depend on whether they write to you or not, whether they seek you out or not, whether they stay or go. And that moment is a watershed in your life. Because although at first you may feel an immense void, little by little you will discover that this void is not abandonment. It is space for yourself. It is the place where you begin to build your dignity, your self-choice, your own validation. And when that happens, when you truly no longer chase, after crumbs of approval, your energy transforms. And what's incredible is how the other person feels it. Even if you say nothing, even if you don't post quotes, even if you don't demand attention, the person perceives that something has changed in you. Before, your gaze asked for confirmation. Now, your gaze holds its own. Before, your message pleaded to be answered. Now, your silence inspires curiosity. Before, your body shrank seeking approval. Now, your posture conveys certainty. That invisible change is what awakens real magnetism. Because magnetism is not about attracting from a void, but about radiating from fullness. Think about this. When someone enters a room and is not trying to impress anyone, but their sheer calm and confidence make everyone turn to look at them, what is happening? That person is not begging for validation, but they get it because the collective unconscious recognizes and bows to the energy of one who does not beg. That is the true power of detachment, properly understood. You don't become indifferent, you become magnetic. Here is the practical key. Every time you feel the urge to seek validation, stop and ask yourself, what am I trying to prove? Breathe. Return to yourself and remember, you don't have to prove anything. Your value is not in the message they reply to. It is in the strength with which you choose your own life. And when you hold yourself from that place without fear, the other person begins to feel a strange void. Why don't they seek my approval anymore? Could it be that they don't need me anymore? Could I lose them? And it is then that their mind begins to revolve around you. Because what does not seek validation inevitably becomes irresistible. That is the secret that transforms everything. When your attention is no longer occupied with winning the other's gaze, your energy becomes the gaze that no one wants to lose. There is something the human heart does not easily admit. Familiarity kills desire. The more unconditionally present you are, the more the illusion that you will always be there settles into the other's mind. And when someone believes they have you secured, their unconscious begins to devalue your presence, as if you were part of the landscape. You are there, but they no longer see you. You speak, but they no longer listen. You give, but they no longer receive it. And the curious thing is that it's not a lack of love that occurs. It is the psychological mechanism of the human brain. That which is always available loses intensity in perception. Therefore, your absence, properly understood, can come to weigh more than your constant presence. It is the unexpected twist that nobody sees coming. When you consciously choose to take a step back, not with resentment or drama, but with calm and confidence. Something ignites in the other person's mind. Suddenly, that presence they took for granted begins to make itself noticed by its absence. Your silence starts to make noise. Your distance starts to raise questions. Your absence becomes a mirror that confronts them with a reality they had not wanted to see. Your energy was the invisible nourishment of their emotional world. Remember something. The mind always compares, and when you were present all the time, there was nothing to contrast your value against. But when your figure withdraws, the brutal contrast appears. They are faced with the void, and that void is not your indifference. It is your decision to return to yourself. And it is in that contrast that the discomfort arises, which ends up revealing the truth. You were much more important than you seemed. Let me illustrate this with a story. Daniela, a woman who was always available for her partner, told me through tears how he had begun to ignore her, to treat her coldly. She, desperate, increased her presence. More messages, more calls, more attempts to show love. But the more she insisted, the more distant he became. One day, exhausted, she decided to stop that silent pursuit. She didn't block him. She didn't confront him. She simply ceased to be there. In her words, "I withdrew without warning but without resentment." And in less than 2 weeks, it was he who was knocking on her door, desperately asking what had happened, begging for her attention. Why? Because her absence weighed more than her constant presence. The same thing happens in reverse. A man confessed to me, "She was always there, always supported me, and in my ego, I took it for granted." But the day she stopped being there, the day she no longer wrote or sought me out, I began to feel an unbearable emptiness. It wasn't her I was missing. It was the energy of being someone important to her, and that absence hit me like a ton of bricks. Carl Jung explained this phenomenon from depth psychology. The unconscious is not moved by logic, but by symbols and contrasts. Constant, unmeasured presence ends up becoming a symbol of the obvious. Absence, on the other hand, activates the symbol of loss, and loss always ignites the desire to recover. That is why what seemed like an insignificant withdrawal becomes the trigger for an emotional reordering. The other person begins to wonder, what did I do wrong? What changed? Why aren't they looking for me anymore? And in those questions, attachment is born. Here is the secret. Your absence should not be a punishment, but a silent declaration that your life depends on no one but yourself. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to dramatize it. You simply take care of yourself, your path, your growth, and from there, your energy sends a much stronger message than any words. You don't need me to be okay, but if you want to stay, you will have to value me. That is the unexpected twist that disarms any ego. You are no longer the person who begs. Now, you are the one who is missing. And the most powerful thing is what happens inside you in that process. When you learn to be absent from someone who did not know how to value your presence, you realize that you were not the one losing by withdrawing. It was the other. You discover that your energy, your company, your light were much more significant than they ever acknowledged. And suddenly you understand that your absence is not emptiness, it is power. Because while before you were trapped in the anxiety of sustaining the bond, now you are the one who has silent control of your value. The paradox is this: the more you cease to be there, the more present you become in their mind, not because you seek to impose yourself, but because the unconscious cannot bear the contrast of what left without explanation. That is the true unexpected twist. Your absence begins to speak louder than all your words. So the next time you feel the temptation to stay out of fear of losing, remember this. Sometimes the only thing you need to regain your value is not to do more, but to do less, to withdraw with dignity and let silence do the work that your constant presence could no longer do. There is a truth that few dare to accept. The most powerful love is not born from attachment, but from freedom. And although it sounds contradictory, conscious detachment does not push you away from love. It enhances it. Because while attachment suffocates, freedom entices. While the fear of losing turns you into a prisoner of need, conscious detachment elevates you to a place where you do not chase, you do not beg, you do not plead, You simply choose. Attachment is like an invisible chain. You think you are holding on to the other person, but in reality, you are pushing them away because no one wants to remain where they feel their freedom is threatened. And here the paradox occurs. The more you try to hold on, the faster they escape. The tighter you pull the rope, the more it tenses until it breaks. But when you dare to let go consciously, when you choose not to depend on the other to maintain your peace, the unexpected happens. The other person begins to draw closer without you calling them. Conscious detachment does not mean coldness or indifference. It doesn't mean closing your heart or giving up on love. It means loving without chains, giving without fear, sharing without the obsession of controlling the outcome. That is to say, you enjoy their presence but you do not crumble in their absence. You know that you can walk alongside someone, but you can also continue on your path without being left in ruins if that person decides to leave. And that freedom, that silent security, is the most powerful magnet that exists. Let me illustrate it with something I heard in a session. A man named Sergio confessed to me, "Whenever a woman got too attached to me, I felt trapped, even when I wanted to stay. But the woman who marked me the most was the one who, although she loved me, showed me every day that her life was full without me. She didn't beg, she didn't demand, she didn't chase me. She was with me because she wanted to be, not because she needed me. And that drove me crazy, because I knew that if I didn't make an effort, she could continue to shine without me. That detachment made me want to be more present than ever. And Anna related the same thing. A woman who discovered that detachment was not a renunciation of love, but a choice of dignity. For years, she clung to a man who did not give her the place she deserved. She cried, she begged, she became desperate, until one day, she understood that the problem was not him, it was her fear. She decided to let go, not with anger, but with calm, not with resentment, but with certainty. And she told me, when I stopped needing him, that's when I truly began to love him from a place of freedom, because I was no longer with him to fill a void, but because I truly wanted to share, not because I needed him to breathe. And right there, at that point, he began to seek me out, like never before. This is what Jung called the process of individuation, the journey of becoming a complete being by yourself, so that you can then relate from a place of choice and not from lack. Attachment is born from the wound of that inner child who cries out for someone to hold them. But conscious detachment is born from the whole adult who knows how to hold themselves, and from there can offer clean love without chains or demands. And here is the key. Conscious detachment does not scare the other person away. It attracts them, because the human soul seeks freedom, not a prison. It seeks expansion, not suffocation. And when someone perceives that they can be with you without losing their essence, without sacrificing their freedom, then your presence becomes the safest place. Not because you trap them, but because you don't confine them. Not because you hold them back, but because you show them that with you life is lighter, not heavier. Your freedom is alluring, because it says something clear. I don't need you to be here to live, but if you decide to, stay, it will be because you choose to, not because I force you. That message penetrates the deepest part of the unconscious and awakens something that attachment never achieves. The genuine desire to be with you, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but out of the real joy of sharing. And when you reach this level, you no longer suffer when someone doesn't stay, because you understand that whoever flees from your freedom was not ready to truly love. You no longer cling to what does not vibrate with you, because you know that what is yours by resonance, not by obligation, always finds a way to remain. The power of conscious detachment is this. It returns you to yourself, and in doing so, it awakens the other's need to want to remain by your side. Because freedom attracts more than any chain, calm seduces more than any insistence, and the security of someone who does not beg becomes the unforgettable presence that no one wants to lose. Thus, love ceases to be a prison and becomes a sacred space where both can fly and at the same time choose to return each day. That is the kind of bond that does not break because it is not held together by chains, but by freedom. And now you understand. The true power is not in begging, nor in chasing, nor in chaining someone to your side. It is in the freedom you radiate when you no longer fear loss. That is the kind of detachment that does not destroy love. It purifies it, because what is born from lack crumbles, but what is born from fullness becomes an unbreakable bond. The day you stop needing, that is the day you will begin to truly attract, because it will no longer be your fear that speaks. It will be your essence. And believe me, nothing is more magnetic than a human being who walks with dignity, who does not implore, who does not beg, who does not break when someone decides to leave, because that is when the other understands that if they stay, it will be by choice, and that forces them to value you like never before. What today seemed like a void is actually your opportunity to rise. What yesterday was a chain can today become your freedom. The love you want is not conquered with tears or pleas. It is awakened when you make it clear that your life is already abundant, even without him or her. And that emotional abundance is what makes your presence unforgettable. You have just received a key that unlocks the chains of neediness and hands you the raw power of your own magnetic essence. The person who started this video is not the same person listening to my voice right now. You have been initiated into a deeper understanding of your own worth, a truth rooted in the profound wisdom of Carl Jung. Feel that shift in your energy. That is the feeling of your soul coming home to itself. To seal this powerful transformation, I want you to perform one final act. Go down to the comments right now and declare 2 simple, earth-shattering words. I am the source. This is more than a comment for a video. It is a declaration to your unconscious mind, a command to your spirit that you will no longer seek validation from the outside because you are the origin of your own power. And if you are truly committed to this journey, then do not let this moment fade. An incredible number of you who experience these transformations haven't subscribed yet, and you risk losing this momentum. This is not just a channel, it is your guide on the path to an unbreakable self. So, take a second to hit that subscribe button and activate the bell. Your future self will thank you. And push that like button, not for me, but to amplify this message so it can find another soul who is still lost in the dark, begging for a light that you now hold within. Do not stop now. The video appearing on your screen is not a suggestion. It is the essential next step. What you have awakened today is precious, and that video will show you how to protect it, amplify it, and make it your permanent state of being. Click it now. Your journey of transformation deserves to be completed. Walk in your power.